All right, let's break down the latest from UK property giant Henry Boot. And what a story it is. We're talking about a real balancing act here. Think record-breaking success on one side, but some pretty major headwinds on the other. So let's get right into it.
Okay, so to really get what's going on with Henry Boot's performance last year, you kinda have to see it as a tale of two very different businesses. I mean, they're under the same roof, but they were pulling in totally opposite directions.
So on the one hand, you've got their land division, Hallam Land, just knocking it out of the park with a record year. But then, on the other hand, their home building arm, Stonebridge Homes, well, it took a pretty big hit, ending up with an operating loss. It's this contrast that makes their story so interesting.
All right, let's kick things off with the good news because there's definitely some great news to talk about. It all comes down to their land promotion division, Hallam Land. I mean, these guys were the absolute star player, the engine room for the entire company last year.
So what does land promotion even mean? Well, think of it like this. Hallam doesn't actually build any houses themselves. They don't lay a single brick. Their whole game is finding undeveloped land, doing all the hard work of getting planning permission, and then selling those oven-ready sites to house builders. And boy, were they good at it last year.
Okay, get ready for this number, because it's a big one. They sold a record. 3,957 plots of land. I mean, just to put that into perspective for you, that is literally enough land to build a whole new town. Just incredible.
And it's not just about the volume, right? They did it really, really profitably. We're talking an average gross profit, so that's the money they make on the sale itself, of around £11,400 for every single one of those plots. That's some serious margin.
So you do the math on all of that, and it adds up to a huge operating profit of £32.9 million. And get this, that's not just a little bump. That is a 34% jump from the year before. I mean, that is a standout performance in any book.
And you don't have to take my word for it. The CEO himself, Tim Roberts, was pretty clear about it. He basically said that Hallam did exceptionally well, noting that they didn't just hit their budget, they smashed it, exceeding it by 13%. And here's the kicker. This doesn't seem to be a one-off. When you look at their entire land portfolio, the company thinks there's over £1 billion in gross profit just waiting to be unlocked over time. That is a massive safety net, a huge pipeline that lets them handle trouble elsewhere in the business.
Okay, so that's the high point. Now we have to flip the coin and look at the other side of the story. This is where things get a bit more complicated. Let's talk about the setbacks over at Stonebridge, their home building division.
And this chart right here, it tells you pretty much everything you need to know. The plan was to complete somewhere between 240 and 250 homes, but what actually happened? They only managed 185. That big gap, that's the core of the problem. It's what drove that whole division into a loss.
So you've got to ask, right? What went wrong? Well, it really wasn't just one thing. It was like a perfect storm of issues. First, you had the slow housing market. People were just more hesitant to buy. Then they got hit with delays in planning permission, they didn't have as many sales outlets open as they'd budgeted for, and they were dealing with construction costs going over budget and even delays getting utilities connected. Just one thing after another.
And you know, the company's leadership was not trying to sugarcoat this at all. The CEO, Tim Roberts, came right out and said the results were materially below our expectations and, quoting him directly, which isn't good enough. When a CEO is that blunt, you know they're taking it very, very seriously.
Okay, so when a part of your business stumbles that badly, everyone wants to know one thing. What's the plan? What are you going to do to fix it? So let's look at their turnaround plan for Stonebridge.
So they've put together this 4-part reset plan. And first things first, they've brought in new leadership. They replaced the managing director and the finance director. That's a huge signal right there. They're also pouring money into better systems, to get more efficient, and they're taking a hard look at their land portfolio to make sure it actually fits with the kind of premium homes they want to be building.
So what's the goal for this year? Well, they're not aiming for the moon. It's all about getting things stable again. The target is just to get Stonebridge back to making a small profit, aiming for around 200 to 220 homes. It's about a steady, controlled recovery, not a crazy jump.
All right, so you've got Hallam, the land business, just absolutely crushing it. You've got a clear plan to fix Stonebridge, the home builder. So what does that mean for the future of the whole company? Where are they looking for that next big wave of growth?
Well, they are definitely not putting all their eggs in one basket. They've got some huge, really forward-thinking commercial projects lined up. And we're not talking about your standard office park here.
They're developing a massive cybersecurity-focused campus, a gigantic industrial and manufacturing park, and even a campus for developing low-carbon aircraft tech. This is some seriously high-tech stuff.
And at the same time they're making these big bets on the future, they've also been tightening their belts behind the scenes. They've made some pretty deep cuts to their central overheads, reducing headcount by nearly a quarter and other costs by 20%. So they're trying to become a much leaner, more efficient company overall.
So, when you step back and look at the whole picture, it really all comes down to that balancing act we talked about at the start. You've got this incredibly reliable profit engine, Hallam Land, just churning out cash. And they're using that cash to fund a turnaround for Stonebridge and to make these huge, ambitious bets on the future. And that really leaves us with the big question, doesn't it? In such an uncertain market, will this strategy, balancing the steady, reliable business with these riskier, high-reward projects, be the thing that ultimately pays off?